Day 2 of free agency, and your Seahawks made another signing, grabbing defensive tackle Jarran Reed on the open market. And he should sound very familiar to you Seahawks fans, as this will now be Reed's second tour of duty with the team. He was originally drafted back in 2016 in the second round out of Alabama, and he was viewed at that time as a run-stuffing defensive tackle, a big one-tech, movable at the point of attack, who could maybe later down the line give you a little bit of pass rush. Well, he came to our Seahawks, and he, through his first couple of years, was exactly that, a run stuffer with a moderate amount of pass rushing ability. But then in year 3, the light bulb really turned on. Reed was able to amass 10.5 sacks in a single season. He looked like potentially maybe that he was going to be a star on the rise for your Seahawks out of the defensive tackle position. That's a lot of sacks for a guy operating in the inside. But he never was able to quite hit that same mark. And it did feel a little bit like he had to sort of go backwards a bit on his run stuffing duties in order to take the steps forward that he was trying to take as a pass rusher from the defensive tackle position. So it sort of kind of unevened him out a little bit as a player, I think, for the Hawks, which is part of the reason that they were willing to let him walk at the time they did a couple of years ago, as he's now over the last 2 seasons been with the Kansas City Chiefs and the Green Bay Packers, respectively. He didn't have a great year with the Kansas City Chiefs. In fact, he had his worst year by PFF standard at about a 45 grade. But what's interesting, I think, about this move is I don't believe the Seahawks are just grabbing a journeyman guy that they've been familiar with before. It's a little bit like the shades of Quentin Jefferson last year, because that's essentially what you're doing here. You release Quentin Jefferson, and you did so because you want to flip him out here for Jarran Reed. But you're doing a lot of what you did before, right? You're going back to the same old well you knew once before. And there's a certain benefit in that, but there also seems to be a little bit of a limitation in that. And then you go, well, what kind of upside did this guy have, though? Don't we kind of know what he is? Wasn't there a reason in the first place that you let him walk? With Reed, I think there's a little bit of hope for optimism here, because Reed has played throughout his career in mostly a 4-3 defense. As I was saying before, he came here and played in a one-tech position before, where he's taking on 2 blockers most of the time off the 4-3. Then Seattle realized he had the pass rushing ability and moved him into the 3-tech role, and now he's got a little bit more of the one-on-one opportunities. But what has happened last year is, for the first time with the Green Bay Packers, he moved to a 3-4 defense as an end. And what happened was he set a career high in tackles. I think this is noteworthy because maybe what we're seeing in Reed here is a little bit of him now going back to his roots as a player of what he was in Alabama, reinvesting himself into being a good run defender. And indeed, it feels like he was a little bit better for the Green Bay Packers than he's been in recent years in that respect. Only had 2.5 sacks last year. I don't think you're going to get a lot from him as a pass rusher, but at the forefront of what the Seahawks really need to do here on this defensive line this offseason is, yes, add some pass rush, but you were able to get some sacks last year. You were able to get, for the most part, a good amount of pass rush. You could moderately beef that up and see good increases and feel fine about that. Where the Seahawks really need to improve, of course, is stopping the run and getting some bigger bodies inside who can handle those duties. And if Reed is a better fit into this 3-4 as an end, then he's going to help take Seattle in that direction. And again, as I said before yesterday with this in the Draymond Jones signing, this is not about finding stars across the board. This is not about finding just stars for your frontline starters. This is about finding depth and quality throughout your rotation so that you can keep moving these guys through, you can keep them fresh, and if you've got to bring the backups in, you're not looking at a huge drop-off in production if you have to do that. Looking at the Eagles this year, they set records for sacks with their pressure numbers and what they did, and they weren't just doing it with the frontline guys. They were doing it with that rotation. I feel like this is a little bit of the new model in the NFL as we go forward. And so when it came to the Seattle Seahawks needing to fix this front seven, this offseason, they're going to need to do it with many different guys. And that's going to include high-quality guys that are really on the rise in a Draymond Jones. And that's also going to include steady guys like Jarran Reed, who may just be, at his purest best fit, a 3-4 defensive end. It's a good signing. Let's see if maybe now Bobby Wagner can come in tandem with these first 2, and it'll look even better. Reports are now that the Cowboys are turning their eyes back to Leighton Vander Esch. They just made a trade and brought on some salary today with Stephon Gilmore. So maybe perhaps they're out of the Bobby Wagner sweepstakes. They were the main team that was in on that, reportedly speaking, with the Seahawks. So maybe now we get to hear Bobby Wagner coming back next. And the Seahawks have taken, with their first 3 moves of this offseason in free agency, the steps to fix what was their greatest detriment last year. My name is Brandon Kane. This is the Hawks Nest. Please hit the like button. Please subscribe. But beyond all that, don't you ever forget, go Hawks.